Great. All right, we'll give it 1 more minute. We'll get started. How do you guys see me? Is the reception good? I'm having a tough time with my internet, so I'm doing it from the phone. Is it okay?
Yeah, very good.
You can
Pretty
see
good.
it?
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, great. Beautiful. Very good. All right, we'll give it just another minute. Super. All right.
You didn't want to go, Jamie?
I don't know. I felt like I was gonna have to quarantine for 14 days and stuff.
Right.
Ricky got away with it. He had paperwork from here to tomorrow to get out of it.
Wow. Wow.
He tested 100 times. He did like a lot of shenanigans to get there.
I can't believe he's there. I can't leave the house half the time, but not really. I do sneak out.
No, it's great.
I go to museums. That's about it.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
You're going to deal for
Okay.
Thanksgiving?
yeah.
Yeah, same.
We're gonna go to Pamela unless they snitch on us and see too many cars in the driveway.
Oh, gosh.
But we've been together a while,
Yeah, same.
since like August, maybe.
Wow, good.
You too? Good.
Same, yeah.
Otherwise, it's crazy. Saying already.
All right, guys. All right, I think we're good to go. Let's start. And all right, as long as, let me know if there's any interruption on the internet. I'm having a little bit of a, okay, beautiful. All right, good to see everybody.
Same here.
And I hope we'll all be, hey, how are you? Good to see you, ZK, how you been?
How are you, Rick?
All right,
How's it
we're
going?
going to, good
Good to see you.
Good. It's great to see you. How's everybody? Okay.
Baruch
I'm gonna
Hashem,
say
everybody's
a
great.
short
Hope everybody's
story.
good. How are you?
Good. Good. Thank God. Good to see you. Start with a quick, short, old, beautiful old story, and then reach back to some of the points we learned a few weeks ago when we started in Sefer Bereshit, and continue into the story of Yaakov Avinu with the perspective the same as it's been all along, which is to learn as much as we can for our practical use. So we want to be turned on to new insights from the Humash in terms of how to learn and so on. And no less importantly, we want to understand how to use those insights in our lives day to day. So there's a beautiful story which I actually used to frame the end paper of the first book that I wrote called From Me to My Children. The end paper is in hues of blue, different shades of blue, and it shows letters, English and Hebrew letters, floating in the horizon. And the first couple of pages and the last end pages, before the content starts, have this look of the skies or the heavens with English and Hebrew letters floating around them. And that was meant to hint at the following of a very poor person, lived many years ago. Goes on Yom Kippur, goes to Knesset, and is crying. And the rabbi looks at him, and he sees this poor man standing by the Hechal, crying. He first assumes that it's Yom Kippur, and that's where his emotion is coming from, so he leaves him. But an hour goes by, and another hour goes by, and the time continues, and the man is standing there, barely moving his lips and crying. Finally, the rabbi goes over to him and asks him what's wrong. And he says that he would never learned to read. The only thing he knows is the Aleph Bet. And here it is, Yom Kippur. He'd like to pray, but he can't. So the rabbi thinks about it for a minute, and he turns to the man and he says the following: say the Aleph Bet once, and then repeat it over and over and over for as long as you like. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take those letters and form them into words that express the feelings that you're hoping to express. Say the alphabet, say it over and over as many times as you'd like, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take the letters and form the words to reflect the feelings that are in your heart. Beautiful. Let's hold on to that, and we're going to connect it into what we want to learn tonight. So when we first opened this section of classes, we started with the pasuk Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, and we said that that pasuk was brought to teach a number of things, one of which is that the Humash starts the story of our world, the story of our lives, the story of life forever, starts with a bet to shout to us that there are two worlds completely different in their makeup, absolutely antithetical in their makeup, in fact, that will seamlessly connect. And in fact, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to make the point so strongly that what he does is he says, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In Reshit, HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates shamayim, which is something completely non-physical, absolutely spiritual, ve'et haaretz, and that physical world that we call ours. And the reason that it's written this way, starting with a bet, connecting the two together, is to tell us that these two completely separate worlds will flow one from the other. So it sounds nice. It's a nice idea. But when you think about it, you say, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? I'm down here, God's up there. I don't know what else is up there. Whatever is up there, maybe because of what it can do, its boundlessness, its absolute spirituality can reach down here, but I certainly can't reach up there. So it's a nice idea. It sounds a little heartwarming, but I don't know what you want me to do with that. And I don't know what it means on a practical level. Okay.
Who said up?
The Torah sort of says, wait and see. And then starts with the first groundbreaking point where HaKadosh Baruch Hu reaches out to Avraham Avinu and speaks to him. So here you have a being with absolute no limitation that can't possibly, you would imagine, channel itself to the limitedness of the person speaking to that person.
Well, were your brother?
So the Torah is saying, here, look, everyone, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is absolutely infinite,
Creation of the
will
world.
somehow constrict himself and allow himself
If you want.
to speak to each of
Shamayim
us.
va'aretz. That's the
And then
difference.
the Torah goes further and says that Ber Hashem Elav, as we learned when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was speaking to Avraham Avinu. And what does Elav mean? Elav means that not only does HaKadosh Baruch Hu set this thing up between the spiritual world and the physical world, where one can somehow move into the other, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu does it with Avraham Avinu specifically, where it's an open channel, a perpetual open channel that he just accesses, just slightly nudges when he wants to. I'm just going to ask, please, we're going to leave,
People don't have to quarantine for 14?
7.
Okay. Why? After 7, they don't usually get it?
It's too long.
Okay.
we want to leave it frank. We have the understanding that there can be this connection, and there will be a connection. And early on, which it's demonstrated when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is stepping into man's world and speaking to him, which really makes absolutely no sense. Man is speaking back to God, and he's interacting, he's getting it, which absolutely makes no sense. But the Torah goes one step further to say that the term Elav means that this connection is intimate, is seamless, is simple, and will never need anything other than what it actually is to exist. Beautiful. Okay. So that's where it's left for us. Now everything sort of takes a pause in the Humash as we begin to put the parameters to what life will be without the Avot, as we spoke about with Abraham and Rivka. And now the Torah goes and yanks Yaakov Avinu and pulls him front and center to us to begin to flesh out in very, very dramatic terms how we live with God.
Miss you. How
What
are you
it
doing?
means, what it says.
So bad. You haven't checked in a while. How's wedding
Please,
planning?
who's ever speaking, please. Come on, let me just mute. Okay. All right, guys, sorry about that. Okay. The yanks Yaakov Avinu into the foreground to teach how this will work. And it starts with the following story. Yaakov Avinu was running from Esav, as we know, and runs to Har Moriah, the mountain in Jerusalem, where we know ultimately the Beit HaMikdash will be built. And he lies down and falls asleep, and he sees V'hinei sulam tzav artza v'rosho magia shamayma. Suddenly, a ladder appears with its feet in the ground and its head in the heavens. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was standing on top of this ladder. Very famous, we all know the story. And then it says, Umalachei Elokim olim v'yordim bo. So remember the backdrop, a seamless connection between physical and spiritual. And Yaakov Avinu being the one who's going to be our exemplar, our model in terms of understanding how that works and how we should use it. Our rabbis say that in this case, we have the angels starting on the earth and climbing the ladder to the heavens to demonstrate a number of things. Point number one, they say, is that the flow between God and us actually begins between us and God, meaning the fact that it says that these angels began on the earth and went up, olim, v'yordim, and then came down, is kind of surprising. You would imagine that angels typically hang around in the heavens and then come down to the earth. But the Torah is specifically stating that they start on earth and go up to the heavens to say that this connection that we have with Borei Olam starts with us and our actions. The Ramchal in Derech Hashem says it very interestingly. He says that a person will do X, a person will say X, a person will think Y. That action, word, or thought will go up that sulam, that ladder, so to speak, up to the heavens, being impacted on by God and the heavenly forces, and sent back down to us. We then act on that action that's been impacted to, and send it back up. So let's think about this for a minute. We would be very happy to know that what we do is noticed in the heavens. We'd be very happy to know that. We would say, that's fantastic. My actions within my limited scope of the universe is not only impactful to me and the people I love and the people I touch, but my actions somehow get noticed in the heavens and get recorded in the heavens. And that's what some of the Mepharshim focus to. But more of the rabbis go much more dramatically further than that and say, no, that's not what we're seeing here. That's not the story that's being told to us. What's being told to us is vastly different. And that is that our actions are going up to the heavens, being responded to, sent back down for me to then build with them to the next level, go back up and come back. So there's a dynamic movement between earth and heaven constantly. That's a remarkable position to take. And in fact, our rabbis say, and we mentioned this a few weeks ago when we were talking about the Bed Elav, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was speaking to Abraham with the seemingly open channel of communication, the term that the Hinei Hashem Nitzav Alav, in this case, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sitting on top of this ladder, shouts the idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is involved in this process. So let's see. Ricky Cohen says something. Abi Tobias says something, right? That's something we'd be very happy to know is being noticed by God. We'd be thrilled about that. Because when we're saying good things, when we're sharing beautiful ideas, when our words are generous and kind and chesed building, we're very happy to know that they have a life beyond the immediate moment that they're heard or that they're felt. The Torah is saying no. Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying no. Not only are they heard, they're responded to and sent back to you to build with. Now, we're going to talk about that more in a few minutes. But let's go with that as our perspective. There's a dynamic action, reaction that doesn't stop between me and the heavens, that's reflected in my action. The take it a little differently. They'll say that whatever we do becomes permanently engraved into our world above and stands there independently and then is acted on and sent back down. Now that has much more serious implications. It says that when I said those words that I said, or I did that thing that I did, positive or otherwise, it stands in the heavens and as an expression of who I am forever. But at the same time, it's responded to by the heavens who want me to continue to build my life in a beautiful direction. That response is inputted to me. We're going to talk about how in a few minutes. And I then have the opportunity to act on that reaction and do something more. So over time, what defines me in the heavens? All of my initial actions, words, and thoughts, and then my reactions to everything that was given to me. And at the end of my 120 years, God willing, this perspective says that I don't exist anymore as me. I exist as the absolute me. Everything I ever said, everything I ever thought about, all the things I ever did. Very, very exciting perspective. Okay. What breaks that perspective? What breaks it is this system called teshuvah, where despite the fact that I did A, B, and C, it was reacted on, and then I did D, E, and F. Should I then respond to the response with a change of behavior that was so dramatic that it took me to a different direction than I had been pursuing, then that eternal action that was standing up there in the heavens representing me is expunged and changed to this new thing that I've now taken on. So again, we know this in different terms, but let's put it out on the table because it's very important and very exciting. A, there is a seamless flow between a world that should never be able to move beyond itself and a world that's infinite that should never be able to limit itself. That flow enables me to continue to grow. And again, we'll talk about how in a couple of minutes. But not only is there a flow, there's the trigger in the system that says that although everything I did, said, and thought remains up there standing alone, a little Ricky, so to speak, each one, should I decide that I learned something from the action or action-reaction to the extent that I'm going to make a dramatic change in my life, what I did before is transformed into that new something. So the past, and it could have been 10 years ago or a minute ago, is expunged and a new something is there, and a negative can become a positive and a positive can become a super positive. Great. Who could ask for more than that? You're telling me that I am a lot more than I do this minute, or than I achieve that hour. If we make money in year one and we spend it in year two, the money is gone. But if I say something beautiful or do something superb in minute one, that's forever. And if I'm plugged into the system, listening to the responses to my action, then that forever minute grows and can become more and more beautiful over time. But not only that, if I did something that I didn't like so much and got that response and heard it and listened to it, then I can reach back into the past and change it based on my new behavior to something much better than it was. Okay, so far? Any thoughts, questions? Everybody all right? We all got it? Zeke, you good? Yeah? Abe, Sarah, any thoughts? Everybody okay? Perfect. Okay, good. So now the question is, how does this work? How does it work? How do I become aware of what's being responded to? How do I understand it? How do I hear it? How do I see it? So I'm going to give one methodology that our rabbis talk about that's not easy. Sarah, you may remember we learned about it in the past. That's not easy, but worth attempting. And it goes like this. Our rabbis describe our non-physical makeup as a neshama, several components. Some say 4 parts, some say 5 parts. Let's say there are 4 parts to the neshama. Our rabbis say that at night, when a person is resting, one part of the neshama leaves us, goes up to the heavens, and freely circulates in the boundless world of knowledge with all knowledge that could ever be. Effectively, having a free pass to go up and circulate and be with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is all knowledge, and glean as much information as it would like. So let's see. All day we're doing our thing, living in a very conscious world, interacting to it as best we can, knowing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has enabled us to connect to this non-physical world and for there to be a flow of information. But now what does he do? He says, I'm going to allow that eternal part of you to disconnect from the physical part of you, run upstairs, and just listen to all the talk, all the learning, all the conversation, and then bring it back down for you so that you can use it. What does that mean? It works in the following way. In the mornings when we wake up, we have this time of heightened awareness. And that's the time, our rabbis say, to harvest the deposit of new information that's been granted us through this seamless connection of physical and spiritual. And it goes like this. Let's assume our morning setup is to get up, say the Modani, wash up, say Netilat Yadayim, and then at that point, what most of us do is begin our day. We begin to enter into our day. What our rabbis suggest is something very different than this. They suggest that once I've said the Modani and I'm comfortable physically, and I've done the Netilat Yadayim, which would remove any tum'ah, any ruach ra, anything negative, spiritually negative from around me, have a seat, go back in bed with your smartphone, with a pencil and paper. Ask yourself questions about the key areas of your life. 3 or 4 questions. If there's an issue, an important issue in your family life with one of the children, if there's an important business issue, communal issue, chesed-related issue, social issue, a couple of questions. Ask the question and just lie back and wait. And our rabbis say that the information that was gleaned from this sulam, from this opportunity to go up to the heavens by our neshama, will then begin to speak itself to us. And it speaks unfiltered and unbridled. And it must be captured and harvested at that particular time. So we have 2 people. Person A understands that there's a connection between somehow there's a connection. And we sort of poo-poo this idea. But if we started to live life realizing that everything I do is responded to, and that response is sent back to me, and I can become aware of that response. And if I can remove the clutter, I can use the new insight and grow with it. I would be infinite. I'd live my life on a remarkably different level. I'd be infinitely more aware. It's a general mindset that we want to achieve. But one of the breakthrough practices is to wake up in the morning and just ask the question. Challenge with one of my children. I have a situation in business. I can't figure it out. And just let the information that's been deposited to this section of the neshama, let it flow. Don't filter it. Don't attempt to push it. Just record it. Now, some of us who have learned together in the past would remember that we've spoken about this in the past, with the key perspective being my willingness to just lie back, relax, don't clutter my mind, don't rush to any engagement in anything, and be absolutely open. Now, sometimes you'll find that you'll write down pages of new insights, pages. Sometimes you'll find that you'll write a handful of ideas. Some days you won't write anything. And in fact, in the beginning, you probably won't write anything. But day after day, if you're willing to take the time to pause and listen and don't edit, just transcribe, you look down on those notes an hour or two later, and you'll say, I don't know where it came from, A, and I couldn't possibly have recorded this on my own from my conscious mind, B. Hang on one second, please. Trains himself to be responsive to this type of thing and to be open to it. He starts to build a channel of connection that's free-flowing throughout the day. So let's see. Remember, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is responding to me throughout the day, to every action, to every spoken word. I'm running through. I'm doing my thing. I'm not aware of it. I'm moving too fast. I'm responding too quickly to that text message, the email, to the WhatsApp. I'm moving. I'm never pausing. I'm never giving myself the time to soak in the response, digest it, consider it, and then move. But if I start to train myself to this notion that I have this ability, I have this flow of information, and I'm going to use it, and I take 10 minutes every morning and frame my mind and my life that way, then I start to go throughout my day that way, always learning to pause a little bit and to let whatever information is there flow. Now, some people, the hardcore rationalists, would say, no, I don't know about this thing. I don't know that I believe it. I'm not sure. I'm not that on board with it. I think it's the subconscious mind speaking its thoughts. We don't have that perspective. We believe that this channel has been opened for us. But you want to tell me it's the subconscious mind? Great. I'll take it. Let me train myself to give my subconscious mind its voice. What Yaakov Avinu does further on is he tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you protect me, if you bring me back home to my family, I promise you that I'm going to make sure that my children's children take the stones that I'm lying on and turn them into a mizbeach, into an altar, and build a permanent place here for you. And I will permanently build myself as a responsive person by any wealth you give me, any substance you give me, I will give you back 1/10 of it. Our rabbis say, what is Yaakov talking about? He has nothing. He ran away from home with the stick, with the staff, and the clothing on his back. What is he doing by turning to God and talking about some type of mikdash, some type of mizbeach that will be built there at some point in time, hundreds of years later? He has nothing to do with that reality, or him repaying 10%, or some rabbis say that because the word esed was repeated twice, repaying 20% of all he's given. Our rabbis say, get the message. The message is Yaakov Avinu is saying, I hear it. I see the sulam. I see the ladder. I understand the connection. I know it's real. And not only that, because I have so much confidence in its reality, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to commit myself to this relationship on a very practical level. I hear what you're saying. I know we're sharing ideas. I'm going to be open. I'm going to see God's input back to me, and I'm going to input back in response. Because otherwise, our rabbis say, what was Yaakov Avinu doing, promising 10 or 20%? 20% of what? 20% of when? You want to make a commitment to somebody? Make a commitment on something you can act on. He wouldn't be able to act on it for who knows when, if ever. But Yaakov Avinu was standing in our place saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I know that this relationship exists. And therefore, when I give charity, I'm giving it not as an isolated action of kindness. I'm giving it to respond to your response, to show you that I know that what I have in my life is absolutely a function of my very hard work, but a function of your involvement as well. And therefore, whatever comes into my life, I'm going to give back a tenth of it, or maybe a fifth of it to you. Okay, so far, we're all comfortable? So the checkpoint on this one is this morning exercise. It's taking the time, taking a piece of paper. My style is I like a piece of paper, and just recording everything that comes down. Now, what we're going to find in life, and many of us are aware of this, is that most of the things that we want to grow beyond have certain core causes. Some of us have spoken about this in the context of Teshuvah. They have certain core causes, and what we generally focus on are the symptoms, the actions that come as a result of those core things that go on inside of us that we just somehow don't necessarily address. So if I'm listening to the feedback that I'm getting, that feedback is going to direct me on the core issues, on building the core happiness points, on building the core advances and possibilities in my life. You know, we imagine, you know, we go to people we trust, and rabbis and thinkers and mentors and parents and people of experience, and we ask for their advice, as we should. But we have the opportunity to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In fact, the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, speaks about this at length. And he says that this relationship between the physical world and the spiritual world, people don't even have an inkling of the balance of it. The reality is that there's information coming down to us, flooding down to us, hitting the faucet, and the faucet is closed. He says, just open the faucet a little bit. And how do you build an awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu constantly responding, constantly? Malachei Elokim Olim V'Rodim. Start with the morning. Now, another methodology, and then we'll pull the pieces together. Our rabbis take a very big position, and you can look at it as a beautiful, uplifting exaggeration, or you can look at it as something very practical. Our rabbis say as follows, that when a person is studying Torah or reading a book of Torah, the words that he's reading are coming directly from God to him. 1 second. Harambam wrote words on the page. Sarah, Ricky, Sonny, whoever is sitting in front of the book in any language, reading those words. Our rabbis say that it's not Harambam speaking to everybody in those words. When I sit and read Harambam's words, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking to me. Let's pause a minute, because it sounds like a nice idea. But let's pause a minute. We're talking about the seamless connection between physical and spiritual. We're talking about how the flow of information is pointed in our direction, waiting for us to take it. We're talking about training ourselves to it. So those greater goals, those more lofty possibilities can be more accessible to us. So we're going to use that time in the morning to train ourselves to be much more aware of the seamless flow. But then it goes further. When I read the Sefarim that I'm studying, I read them on two levels of awareness. The first is looking at the book and saying that this is what Harambam was teaching about Shabbat, or this is what the Ibn Ezra was saying about the situation with Yaakov and Esau, or this is what the Maharsha is writing about this piece of Gemara. Great, fabulous. But what this perspective says is that there's another level of understanding which says that this is also HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking to me now about important insights in my life. And even though the content has seemingly nothing to do with my area of study, it's God and me talking with this as the platform, and let me get out and use it. And how do I use it? By being aware of it. So this is what we should be drawing from the story of Yaakov and the ladder. Otherwise, what am I doing with the ladder? How does he see it? Why does he see it? What is HaKadosh Baruch Hu doing there? What are these menachim? There are a number of attempts to parse this issue out into its small pieces and make sense of them. But if we hold that through Yaakov Avinu, we make pragmatic and real our relationship with God, because he is the Av who has the most practical life, who deals with his children, many of them, with tremendous ups and downs, who deals with real life business situations, who deals with people who are trustworthy and otherwise, who's compromised over and again. He's the most practical Av. And that's why through him is the best channel to explain to us how it works. I'm going to take the most practical patriarch, show you in more psukim about his life than all the other patriarchs put together what life will be, very practical life. And I'm going to tell you that he's going to maximize that by keeping the channels open with the non-practical side of things. Good. So let's go back to our first story. A poor person didn't have the opportunity to learn how to read, standing in front of the Hechal on Yom Kippur, crying. I would cry too. I want to express myself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I can't. What does his rabbi tell him? Say what you know and understand that God's involvement with you is so direct that he is going to read what's in your heart, take the letters and form them into words, and let those words stand at your behest. This is a very charged and sensitive way to live. And it enables a possibility and an awareness and an openness and an expansiveness that couldn't possibly be there otherwise. So it means slowing down our response time, waiting for the response from the heavens to my actions or my words, and then the further response to that, understanding there's a cycle, grabbing the critical time first thing in the morning to catch it, training myself to it, and then elevating myself to live with a level of communication with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is really meant for us to have. Good. Let's get some thoughts, responses, questions. What do you say? Sarah, unmute. I can't hear you.
Is that good? Okay. So
Yeah.
that was wild. That was really wild. I understand it, except for the part where you said that Yaakov turned to Hashem and said, if you do this for me, then I
Right.
will build you. What does Hashem need an altar for anyway? That's not, doing anything.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And what is Yaakov Avinu doing making deals with God?
Deals with God.
All right. What is he doing making deals with God? All right. Some rabbis are uncomfortable with it for good reason, like you're saying. And other rabbis are saying, it's better to say bli neder. It's better to say, when you do something like this, when you say something like this, I'm not making an absolute commitment. Better to qualify it, but otherwise, why not? Let's take another example. Let's say that a person goes up to the Sefer Torah and he makes a promise to give $100 to a charity. Effectively, he's not giving the $100 at that minute, and he may not give it. And he's standing before God in front of the Sefer Torah saying, you know what? I'm going to give it. Some of the rabbis are very concerned about that for good reason and say, you can't affect this now. You have no right to make the commitment to do it because you can't affect it now. It's Shabbat. It's Yom Kippur. You're making a promise to do something. You're gonna pay the money over X number of years. What if you don't? So some rabbis will say a person has no right to make a commitment that he can't effectuate immediately. So I'm twisting your question a little bit, but I want you to hear it because it makes your question stronger. A person can make a commitment vis-a-vis HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He can, but only if he can execute on it this minute, because otherwise, who knows what's going to happen? So the premise of your question, which is, how can you make a commitment like that? How can you make a commitment like that, right?
It's like when somebody makes a bet and they.
Who are you to make deals with God? Our rabbis say, what's that?
I said, it's like somebody makes a bet and doesn't put the money down right then and there. You don't know that they're going to come through.
Perfect, beautiful. So some people say, you have no right to do it.
Right.
But then the rabbis say, well, why not? Why not? We have this relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is action and response, and response and response and response. It's a flowing thing. So the Havdil, the same way you would tell a person, I'll pick you up tomorrow. I'm going to go get that. I'm going to go buy that gift for you that I promised you. Or let's have dinner tonight at 8, where I'm not delivering on it immediately, but it's an expression of my relationship and the confidence in the ongoingness of that relationship. Why not?
Because it puts you on hold until you get the response.
Now, but you're right. Talking about my spouse or my friend. I'm talking about God in this case. Who am I? So our rabbis say, yeah, it would be better if when you made a commitment, it was something you could deliver on immediately, which Yaakov Avinu couldn't because he left as a pauper with nothing. But if there's a possibility and you sincerely believe that you will deliver on it in the future, why not?
But
It's
not
an
only that,
expression-
he's asking for something in return
Right,
for the future give.
right.
Right. So it's like dating a PO with China, right? You're getting terms or credit terms with a vendor, right? With Hashem. You're asking Hashem for terms, and then you're asking for an advance
Right.
on that ask, on that future promise.
That's it. That's right. That's right.
Right?
So
And
what
it's
don't you
keeping-
like about that? I
because
love it.
it's
Perfectly put.
It's
So tell me
keeping
what you don't like about that.
because it's
I didn't
keeping
say I
you
dislike it.
on
I'm just explaining it.
keeping you on hold. You're
Right.
waiting for him to do something for you to react. You're waiting now. You're going to wait. for him to
That's right.
respond, and then you're gonna wait. And if he doesn't
Exactly.
respond, you're not gonna commit.
That's right.
He's not always gonna respond.
That's right. So talk to me about that, Sarah. You're right. Zeke, you're
So,
right. Talk to me
so if he's not gonna respond, you're gonna,
about
you're
that, guys.
not
What
worth.
does that mean? What does it mean?
It
What do
means
we, huh?
It's like, it's something that's not gonna be for you, or you have to change your attitude about it.
Right.
If he's not
Yeah, I'm
going,
making a deal with God. I'm making a contingency with God, right? Who am I to do that, right? Who am I to do something like that, right? If and when you do this, I'm telling you I'll do that. By the way, the underlying assumption when I make that deal, so to speak, with God, is I'm going to be building my life a certain way.
right,
Let's not forget that. And maybe this starts to put it into more of a framework that we can be comfortable with. When Yaakov Avinu says, assuming that you bring me back, I will do such and such, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's assumption is that Yaakov Avinu is going to live like Yaakov Avinu. And when he does something and HaKadosh Baruch Hu responds to it,
he deserves it.
he's going to be aware of the response and he's going to grow and change. So let's say
However,
it's 10 years or 20 in Yaakov's
there's
case.
a conflict there. There's a conflict there. Because when it comes to the concept of tzedakah, as we know, we learn in first grade, that's the one thing you can test Hashem with without any, you don't have to come through or do anything good or right. There's no return promise. I'm going to do this and expect. I have the right to expect return on my investment.
Beautiful.
No,
Right?
come on.
Right.
So you're answering stronger than me. I
Right.
love it. You're answering stronger than me. Yeah.
in a sense, but in a sense, no,
No, not
because
in a sense.
because you're
You don't have to apologize.
no.
Huh?
In a sense, because if you're saying that it's understood that Yaakov is going to be Yaakov, well, then that conflicts with the tzedakah theory, because there is no underlying you have to be Yaakov Avinu in order to get a return on your tzedakah, right?
That's right.
So
Correct.
Right. So then, how does that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So I'll tell you.
Okay.
Beautiful. When you're talking about, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I don't have to do anything but.
Or
I
be
don't have to do
Yaakov
anything but. When I give tzedakah, because but let's understand what that means. The two of you together. Let's combine it. It's such a beautiful point.
Okay.
When I give tzedakah, right, I'm giving that tzedakah with the assumption that God is going to come back and give me something good as a result. And he says, I will, right?
We have the right to assume. Yes.
Excellent. So what does that mean? That means that what I'm preempting my tzedakah, I'm giving it maybe when it's not yet due. Maybe it's like a bikurim type of thing where I'm fronting it, where I'm giving it early.
Okay.
Maybe it's more than required or earlier than required. Maybe. You don't have to say that. I don't want to say that because that lets us off too easy. But I want to say that that is one possibility. That I'm going to say, you know what, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to give $100 because
What? Oh, it froze.
I assume I'm going to this month, even though I may not. And what we're saying is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you told me if I give the 100, I'm going to make the 1,000. So I'm going to give the 100 now, even though I don't have the 1,000 yet. That's one way to approach it. You good with that?
Good.
Yeah, that's what
Yes.
you're saying. That's what we hold. That's what we hold. Test me on this one. What does it mean, test me? It means that I don't have that 10%. I don't have that 20%. I'm giving more than I should at this point. I'm preempting it. I'm exaggerating my commitment. I'm giving $200 when I only made $500. How could I do it? Well, you know what? You know how I can do it? Because God told me, test me on this one. You good with that?
Good.
Good. Beautiful. Now to broaden it, to universalize it, and this is where the phone is dropped, so to speak. Why don't I get into a groove with that in general, where I understand that the same way I had a conversation with Akadosh Baruch Hu about the 200 and the upcoming monies that God willing would come from that, I make myself aware of the constant. I'm constantly speaking to God. I'm attempting to make myself much more aware of his responses to me. So it goes like this. It would mean that I train myself, I train my ear to be much more attentive. I train my mind to look at the words of the Humash or whatever book, Torah book I'm reading, and read them on the level of the pshat and the level of interaction. I take the things that happen to me in my life, the friendships that are working, the friendships that aren't, the oddball event that happened just for a minute, the insight that came into my heart just for an hour at 3:00 in the morning. And I start to frame those as part of this ongoing, constant conversation between me and God. That's the bigger message. Then if I'm in a discussion with God all the time, I can say, you know what, God, I think you're telling me X by having this guy walk into my life unexpectedly for the first time in 20 years, say these things that were profound and disturbing or whatever. Rather than shrugging it off, I'm going to work it because I know I'm in a conversation with you. So if we go on this heightened level of awareness, then we're going to be doing this thing. We're going to be making commitments.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Are you with me? Am I being clear enough?
Very,
Maybe not so
very
clear,
much
right?
like what
Okay, let's try it
Michael
again.
Singer talks
Huh?
about. It's very much like what Michael
Who's
Singer.
that?
That's the what's the name of the book? I can't think of it now. It escapes me. But it's very much like it's being open to, life is presenting itself to you and noticing that, right? And that's what you're saying right now is that this moment or this thing is unfolding, allow it to unfold and go with that and roll with that.
You're absolutely
But
right. And
I
I'm
think
saying,
you
I'm taking,
I think you're really
yeah, go
saying,
ahead, Sarah.
well, every action has a reaction. I never realized that the reaction, I thought it was built into the system, the reaction, but you're really saying that it goes up and God is like managing
Beautiful.
it somehow and sending it
Beautiful.
back.
Beautiful.
So it's not
Beautiful.
automatic reaction.
Beautiful. 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 Right. Hit it. Every action has a reaction, but the reaction is a turbocharged reaction from a spiritual plane. Now, not every reaction is. We know not every reaction is. But many, because we can't, at this point in our discussion, we can't absorb the idea that every reaction is, even though it is. But let's not say that.
Okay.
Let's just say at this point that we're going to build our awareness, our depth of thought to be much more aware of the possibility that most of the reactions, I'm saying all of them are. Yeah. But I don't want to go there because it'll blow our brains out. I want to just say, for some reason, 3 or 4 things came into my life at a particular point in time, in a particular way, that might seemingly in yesterday before this class have been things where I just said, thank God, or how nice. Rather than saying thank God or how nice, you can say it, it's true. Say, wait a second, is there a little something here? Am I being encouraged in a certain direction? Am I doing something? Have I done something a little differently that's bringing a little bit of a different response? Let me broaden and raise. So I want to go somewhere. I want to go, Zeke, I want to push it a little further than where you are. And Sarah, I want to push it a little further than where you are. I want to push it further on both. I want to say that let's over time take the small whatevers, those small elements of things that come up and things that happen. And let's not make ourselves afraid. Let's not make ourselves just responsive. Let's feel like champions. If I'm a basketball player on a fabulous team and I'm playing well, and I have a coach who has zeroed in on me and he's constantly guiding me to be better, I want to be hearing everything he says. I don't want to say, well, he's been coaching me for 20 years. I heard all those things already. I got it. Therefore, I love you, coach. Thank you for the guidance, but you told me that already. Or this guidance doesn't really mean that much. But if I connect the dots more and I try to say, you know what, but I can become significantly more aware. I can become dramatically less dismissive. I can, before I say kapara, before I say my bad, what's the new expression now? My children say it. They made a mistake, my bad. What does my bad mean? It means I made a mistake. I own up to it, which is very nice, but I'm done with. It's in and out. It's done.
Let's move on.
It's
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's move on. It's the same thing that when someone says thank you, and the response of the other person is no problem. It's the same disengagement.
Right.
There's a universe of difference between thank you and no problem, and thank you and you're welcome. Thank you and you're welcome keeps the human connectedness wide open. It allows a sharing of the heart.
I'm glad I could help. I'm glad I've helped you.
I'm glad I can help. And we have a relationship.
Right.
Even if you're the grocery store clerk,
Right.
we have a relationship. Even if you're the person who helped me get on the bus, if you're the Uber driver, if you're the person who I just did a business deal with, or I just learned a class with. Once I say no problem, I've disengaged from the dialogue. When I say no problem with God, I'm out of the dialogue. Yeah. When I say my bad, I'm out of the dialogue. I'm using silly examples, but they're so powerful. When somebody tells me no problem, it hurts me. When I say thank you to someone, whoever it might be, and they say no problem, I feel hurt by that. I said, why would you want to end the relationship with me? Whatever the relationship is, on as limited level as it is, let's keep it open. By you saying you're welcome, oh, we're still engaged. And you may be a clerk, and I may be a thing, and you may be a thing, and we may never see each other again. But when the is thank you, no problem, it's one of disengagement. It's not one of ongoing conversation. So I want to speak to what both Sarah and Zeke are saying. I want to say that, yes, we can make commitments, and they could be future-based commitments. What our rabbis suggest, and what we do, is we qualify the future-based commitments that we make to God by saying, B'li neder. I'm not making an absolute commitment because I'm a human being, and sometimes I slip. But I'm going to try in every way possible to make this happen. I qualify it just a little bit, which, knowing human failures, I think is a good idea, and we do it. That's our halacha. But we do it, and we're happy to do it. And when we do it, when we say, not only is Hakadosh Baruch Hu responding to my charity, right, Zeke? He responds to my charity. We know that when we give charity, right? We've been told many, many times, Hakadosh Baruch Hu will respond in the positive. We have full confidence in that, right?
Yep.
You there?
100%.
Okay, beautiful. Now we're saying, let's start to build that level of confidence in all that we do and be listening to his response in all that we do and be less quick to act, less dismissive, more thoughtful, more aware, more global, more broad. And in that way, raise our awareness in general. You know, I did this this interview with Natan Sharansky the other day, and he's so much larger than life. He's not a little bit larger than life. He's so much larger than life. And then I went to meet with him, we did it with him and Gil Troy, the co-author of the book, in the backyard of Gil Troy's house here in the German colony. And you know what? He's, I don't know, maybe 5'3", 5'4", doesn't look larger than life. But how did he become larger than life? How did he become a person who risked literally, not a storybook, not 1,000 years ago, literally said, I'm willing to die. If you are not going to allow me to connect to the Jewish people and the land of Israel, you can shoot me. What do you mean, Mr. Sharansky? If you don't stop this, we're going to kill you. Do you understand? 15,000 page indictment. And the last page says, you've already been judged and the penalty is death. Get off this Jewish thing. He says, not interested. I'm going to fight till I win. How do you live like that? Where does that come from? How do you become larger than life? You become larger than life by listening to the conversation, by seeing the ladder, by knowing that your actions and words or thoughts going up and down the ladder, that, like he titles his book, you are never alone. You're truly never alone. You're in the conversation with God all the time. So it fascinates me, and I'll never really understand how a person who knew almost so little about Judaism was able to get this point so beautifully. So
it's a foxhole
sensitive.
moment, though. That's what that is. That's the foxhole moment. That's the epitome of a foxhole moment right there, right?
It's true. You're right. You're right. But they tailed him for 3 years.
Right.
They jailed him for 9 years. They tortured him. They force-fed him. They put him in an isolation cell at 30 below zero for 405 days. And you know what? He stayed with it.
He stayed with it.
Unbelievable.
So is that a foxhole moment?
Well,
Or
it
is that
starts.
a life perspective?
It begins with
It
one.
starts with it.
Right.
Absolutely. That's
20
right.
sesions of courage.
Beautiful.
And it leads into everything.
That's right. If you stay with it. If you stay with it.
Wow.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Great.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful. Great to see everybody. Thank you.
that was
Hope
fantastic.
to see
Thank
you
you,
all
Ricky.
soon.
Fantastic.
Thank you for the beautiful
Thank
points
you.
and questions.
Thank you
Good
so
things.
much. Really,
You
thank you.
too. Thank you. Sunny, take care. Bye. Thank you,
Take care.
everybody.
Ricky.
Bye-bye.
Bye.